what we did was that we went to the University of Georgia and we met with the people who had been doing research at the University of Georgia and around the country, and people in sports medicine and all, and they came up with this. They had done a research and study using our state and other states, and coming up and made suggestions to the football committee and the executive director and all. We met in Athens for 2 days, and we listened to the pros and cons of what we could do to help our young people play in football so that we could get rid of the stigma that we lead the nation in deaths in the state of Georgia since 1995. But it makes everybody else aware of the fact that we need to do something to help our young people be able to be better athletes, better trained, but better cared for than what we were doing. Not that we weren't doing a good job, it's just that maybe we didn't keep up with what the modern way of doing things is. And so we came up with a plan that it's a heat acclimation program which would be 14 days in length. And through that, there's different guidelines that you'd have to go. And to take you through a quick synopsis of it would be that we start football. Noah used to start it on August 1. Well, we're going to start this year on July 25. You have 5 days. That means Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You've got Saturday and Sunday off, and you have Monday and Tuesday. Now, in that period of time, you can only wear a headgear, shorts, and T-shirts. You can only practice 2 hours a day. Now, after that 5 days, you can put pads on. You know, when we're talking about pads, that's talking about putting the headgear, the shoulder pads, and the togs, and this, that, and that. So now you can work out twice a day. But if you work out twice a day, the first practice can be no longer than 3 hours. Then you have to have at least 3 hours off, and then you could come back and do 2 hours, but you cannot exceed greater than 5 hours per day. Now, we have
what... You can't have 5 hours all at one time.
No, ma'am. Then the next thing comes down to it, we have what you call a walkthrough. And the walkthrough is that on a day where you do in one practice, after 3 hours, the young men can go out and with just a T-shirt on and shorts and a baseball cap, no activities, they can go through a teaching session. But you cannot do that when you're out there in 2 a day. So if you had 6 days or 5 days in a row, we want you to take a day off. Now, let's take an individual who comes out for football after the 25th. That person's got to start at day 1 and put in his 5 days before he can put on pads. If you practice twice, and then you got to come back and you're off for 2 or 3 days, you've got to come back at day 3 and go through your process. So in a 14-day period of time, we feel as if we can acclimate your body to be able to handle the heat better than what we've done before. Now, the big key to everything is sports medicine and our trainers. Now, a lot of schools do not have the money to put a trainer in every school, but that is utopia, and that's what everybody would like to work for. And those schools who have it, those people are excellent. And these people are professional people in how to train it, and they have to be listened to. So when we come out there, we came up with the fact that this committee did with we call a wet bub. And you know, to go through, and they have certain temperatures that they check with the wet bub. And what you do is, when the sports medicine person would determine what activity, when the coach tells them this is the activity we're going to do, they would test it. Now, your time starts when you walk on the field until you leave, and it cannot exceed 3 hours. But how often would we check the wet bub? Depending on if you started early in the morning and the heat's getting up, you check it more often. The wet bub globe temperature reading is a composite temperature used to estimate the effect of air temperature, humidity, and solar radiation on the human body. The reading is expressed in degrees, but should not be equated with the degrees of air temperature. For example, a wet bub reading could be 92, is somewhat comparable to a heat index of 104 to 105. So this gives you, so in other words, when you take this reading, then there is a chart of what activity you can do. If it's above 86, well, you need to have a tub with ice in it if you see the first sign, but you need to have the equipment out there to handle if that happens. Now, you take it, the reading ever so often. You may have to alternate your practice schedule. You may have to completely close it down. But what we found out with the study for 3 years is that very few practice was totally, completely called off. But but it's going to be a situation to where they would read that reading, and then how many breaks do you take within an hour? How long do you make this break? Do you have a cooling off place? But now when practice is over with, for those 3 hours that you cannot do anything, weightlifting, any of that stuff. And then we hope that people would utilize this in the preseason, like running the stadium or running steps or jogging or gassers or whatever you have it. Those people. Now, we do not take into consideration the game. But when we play a game, the officials have the right to use more timeouts. You have coaches standing on the sideline that we're only watching 22 people, and normally we're not playing both ways. So the committee felt as if we would leave it as we have it. Now, if you're having a scrimmage or you're playing a preseason game, then you should pay close attention to it. Okay, a lot of people were doing exactly what we're saying. Some people were, and some people were not. So what we're trying to say is that now that we're going to put you on a schedule, that this is what you must follow. If you fail to follow it, there is a $500 to $1,000 fine to the school that does not follow it, because it's important that we reduce the number of people going down with heat stroke. I think that, macho people playing football is a matter of you've never gotten overheated. Macho people can go down just like a weak guy can go down. So we're concerned about the young man that doesn't do a lot of things, that comes out for football. We want to try to get this boy or athlete in shape so that he or she can do it. And we found out, talking to Mike Corson, the head trainer at the University of Georgia, that more injuries are resulted from after a 2-day practice and come back the next morning. In other words, shoulders, knees, other things. So and he was on this committee and people all over the country, that gives us a better opportunity. Now, will we have to tweak it? I'm sure that there's some small parts that we will have to tweak it, but we feel very positive about going into the season that we can do a better job acclimating our young people to play football than what we have in the past.
So is the real purpose here to avoid someone dying this year of a heat stroke?
Dying or even suffering from heat stroke. In other words, you lose a young man for heat, you've lost him for the year, whether it's death or not, and because, like I say, overcoming that is not an easy thing to do. So in other words, we have everything in the Constitution, everybody has access to it. Now here's the main thing that the coach has to do. The coach has to write up what his schedule is, how he's going to do it. He has got to sign it. He can add more than what we have. It has to be sent to every parent or guardian that they are aware of what the coach is doing each and every day. So in other words, the parent or the guardian will now be the person who will make sure that the coach adheres to what we're saying we think we should do.
So do you feel like the State High School Association have really stepped up with these rules?
I do, and I think that a lot of people were sitting back waiting on to see what Georgia would do, and since we've passed it, there's been several other states that have gotten on board with us to do this, because they see that we're becoming a leader rather than a follower in our sport.
Okay, great. He's going to take a picture.